Welcome back to the channel, my friends. Warhammer Man Studios. I'm Warhammer Man, and today we're taking a look at Grotmas calendar day 11, Space Marines. This video is sponsored by CMO Games. More on that later. Grotmas calendar day 11. The pen is mightier than the power sword. Wield the devastating power of the warp solely on behalf of the Emperor. Mind you, with today's Grotmas calendar detachment for the mighty Space Marines, the LIBRARIUS CONCLAVE, who are all getting books for Grotmas this year. Alright, so we have a new Space Marine detachment focused on the Librarians. The Psychic Space Marines who make up the ranks of the chapter's Librarius usually stand apart from their battle brothers, many of whom find their mastery of the occult disturbing. Despite their misgivings, no Space Marine doubts the might of their Librarians. On rare occasions, generally as a response to demonic invasions of the machinations of Xenos Psychers, a group of Librarians may accompany a hand-picked task force to battle. When leading squads of transhuman warriors into the fight, the Conclave will enhance their battle brothers' already supreme strength, speed, and endurance with channeling empiric energies, confound their enemies with illusionary deceptions, or obliterate the foe with blazing torrents of flame. They can wield psychic disciplines to suit the peril at hand, choosing one discipline each battle round. Biomancy augments your troops' prowess. Divination guides them along the truest path to victory. Pyromancy empowers their weapons. Telekinesis shields them. And telepathy lets them cut through the confusion and illusion. The enhancements and stratagems have enhanced effects depending on which discipline is active. For example, celerity lets a unit advance and charge, but with biomancy active, it lets a unit fall back and charge. While Fiery Shield helps your unit avoid attacks in melee, and with Pyromancy active, it also makes enemy weapons hazardous. Alright, so let's check out the brand new detachment. Alright, so we have the Librarius Conclave. And keep in mind that the Oath of Moment army rule will still be active for your 40k army. So your Space Marines are still going to select their Oath of Moment target, and then depending on what chapter you're using, assuming it is just Codex compliant Space Marines, you'll get to reroll hits against that unit, and then also you'll have +1 to wound with the new rules. Or if you're choosing something like Blood Angels and playing Librarius or Dark Angels, you're just going to have the reroll from the Oath of Moment. You're not going to get that bonus +1. So our detachment rule is Psychic Disciplines. At the start of the battle round, select one of the following Psychic Disciplines. Until the end of the battle round, the Psychic Discipline is active. Its effects apply to all Adeptus Astartes Psyker units from your army. Alright, so there's no limit on how many times you can choose this one, so you could choose the same one every single battle round for the entire game, or you could select a different one every battle round, no restrictions there. So we have Biomancy Discipline. Add 2 to the move characteristic of the model's unit. Divination Discipline. Each time a model in a unit makes an attack, reroll a hit roll of 1 and reroll a wound roll of 1. Pyromancy Discipline. Each time a ranged attack made by a model in this unit targets an enemy unit within 12 inches, improve the armor penetration characteristic of that attack by 1. Telekinesis Discipline. Each time a ranged attack targets a unit, subtract 1 from the strength characteristic of that attack. Telepathy Discipline. Each time a model in this unit makes an attack, you can ignore any and all modifiers to the attack's weapon skill or ballistic skill characteristics, and or any and all modifiers to the hit roll. Alright, so we have 5 different options, all very nice, definitely fairly situational, based on what your matchup is going to be, or what like your current or existing threats are. You'll be able to modify how your army acts. Now, realistically, this is not going to be affecting every unit in your army. It's only going to be your Psyker units. So any unit that already has the Psychic keyword, which I don't think there's any in Space Marines, and then any characters that attach to those units are going to grant it to the units. So you can potentially be taking like 3 Librarians, put them in any 3 different squads, and then obviously the Librarian and the squad will all have the Psyker keyword, so they'll all get these bonuses. And then you also have options for like a Librarian in Terminator armor, so potentially another 3 Psykers right there. If you're playing Ultramarines, which are Codex compliant, you could also have someone like Tigurius, which is going to grant you another Psyker. So potentially right off the bat, you could have like 7 different Psykers in 7 different units. So benefit quite a bit of your army. Now, is that going to be an optimal decision, or are these units really going to benefit from these? You know, that's fully up to you. +2 to move is pretty good. Your standard Marines are going to be moving 8 inches. That could be key in early or late games. Divination, essentially rerolling hits and wounds of 1. Definitely strong, but obviously with Oath of Moment, you'd already be rolling your hit rolls against a certain target. Pyromancy, an extra 1 AP in shooting within 12 inches is definitely good. A lot of Space Marine weapons have lower AP, but high volume of attacks. So if you can boost that AP by another 1, especially if you just got into position on your previous turn with Biomancy, you can definitely be doing some serious damage. Telekinesis is okay, subtracting 1 from the strength of the attack, but realistically that's going to be primarily useful for breakpoints. So if you have like a toughness 12 vehicle and they're shooting a toughness 12 weapon at it, making them wound on 5s instead of 4s is definitely huge. Or if they're shooting strength 8 weapons into Space Marines, normally they'd be wounding on 2s, but if you drop them down to strength 7, now they're wounding on 3s. And then telepathy, if you have an opponent's army that has a bunch of minuses like to your hit roll or ballistic skill, etc., things like Death Guard or Vanguard Space Marines, this could definitely be big. So lots of good options here. This is essentially like a sideboard that you can use throughout the game to kind of power up your army or mitigate some of your opponent's abilities. So definitely nice. And then moving on to enhancements, we have Prescience, 25 points, Adeptus Astartes Psyker model only, excluding Terminator models. Once per turn, when an enemy unit ends a normal move, advance, or fallback move within 9 of the bearer's unit, the bearer's unit can make a normal move of up to a d6, or up to 6 instead if Divination Discipline is active for your army. Alright, so this enhancement like powers up if Divination is active for your army. So instead of getting a d6 reactive move, which is already good, you're going to get a 6-inch reactive move, which is really good. And this is once per turn, so you're potentially doing it every single turn. So very, very powerful ability. And then we have Celerity, 30 points, Adeptus Astartes Psyker model only. The bearer's unit is eligible to declare a charge in a turn in which it advanced. And if Biomancy Discipline is active for your army, it is eligible to declare a charge in a turn in which it fell back. So again, very powerful. You can advance and charge, or if you have Biomancy active, you're going to be able to fall back, advance, and charge. So realistically, if you have a unit that's locked in combat and you know next turn you want to fall back and charge with that unit, you just activate Biomancy in your turn, you then fall back, and then you have the ability to charge. So really good. And then we have Obfuscation, 20 points, Adeptus Astartes Psyker model only. Enemy units cannot use the Fire Overwatch stratagem to shoot at the bearer's unit. And if the Telepathy Discipline is active for your army, the bearer's unit cannot be targeted with ranged weapons unless the attacking model is within 18 inches. So again, very powerful. The ability to ignore Overwatch is huge. Your opponent doesn't have the ability to Overwatch you. And then you're untargetable outside of 18 inches, another powerful ability, but only active if you have Telepathy. And last but not least, we have Fusillade, 15 points. Adeptus Astartes Psyker model only. Ranged weapons equipped by models in the bearer's unit have the anti-monster 5-up and anti-vehicle 5-up abilities. And the sustained hits 1 ability, if the Pyromancy Discipline is active for your army, add 6 to the range characteristic of those weapons if the Telekinesis Discipline is active for your army. Alright, so you're going to have anti-monster 5-up and then anti-vehicle 5-up, which is pretty nice if you have like a decent little AP on a gun, but it's low strength. That anti-monster or anti-vehicle can be huge. Something like Infernus Marines that you normally wouldn't want to dedicate your Oath of Moment to because they don't have a hit roll, so you're giving up their reroll hits, but you want that +1 to wound. Instead of that, you can do anti-monster 5-up, anti-vehicle 5-up, and you still be able to get quite a few wounds on something. Now, if you are going to have your Pyromancy active, you're going to get the sustained hits 1, and then if you're going to have the Telekinesis active, you're going to get extra 6 inches on your range. So kind of a dual purpose strat right there. Again, both of those would probably be pretty good on something like Stern Guard. Having a rapid fire with sustained hits and an extra 6-inch range would take your regular range up to 30 inches, and then when you cut it in half, you're rapid firing at 15 with sustained hits. And then you have anti-monster, anti-vehicle with full rerolls to wound, which means you're going to be getting devastating wounds on 5s or 6s versus vehicles or monsters. And then if you have the Pyromancy active for the sustained hits 1, suddenly the AP is going to go from 1 to 2, so any of the wounds that you successfully get that aren't devastating are going to be hitting at -2 AP. So very, very powerful abilities here. Definitely a lot of usefulness. Now you're going to have to build your army specifically around librarians. You're also going to have to play quite a few games with this to get experience so you know what abilities, what enhancements, when to activate them. So probably a pretty high ceiling on this detachment. Now a quick word from today's sponsor, CMO Games. CMO Games carries a full range of Games Workshop products including miniatures, paint, terrain, tools, and more. They take pre-orders for most Games Workshop new releases as early as possible, usually 12:01 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. CMO Games offers 15% off of MSRP for most all Games Workshop products and offer fast free shipping to the continental United States on orders over $50. Most orders ship out within 24 hours. You know their customer service is top-notch as they've been selling games online for over 20 years. Use the affiliate link below and let them know that Warhammer Man sent you. Alright, and then moving on to Stratagems. We have Sensory Assault, 1 command point. Your command phase, 1 Adeptus Astartes Psyker unit from your army. Effect, select 1 enemy unit within 18 inches and visible to 1 Psyker model in your unit. Until the start of the next turn, that enemy unit is pinned. While an enemy unit is pinned, subtract 2 from that unit's move characteristic, subtract 2 from that unit's charge rolls. In addition, if the Telepathy Discipline is active for your army, the enemy unit must make a battle shack test, subtracting 1 from the result. So this is pretty good. It's 1 command point and it's command phase, which means you could do it in your command phase and then you could do it in their command phase. And then it's going to be until the start of your next turn. So you could essentially have 2 units pinned by this ability. -2 to their move and -2 to their charge is huge. That's essentially taking 4 inches away from each unit. And then the potential to battle shock them with -1, definitely very strong. You're going to want to be popping this off quite a bit. And then we have Armor of Contempt, your opponent's shooting phase or fight phase just after an enemy unit has selected its targets. 1 Adeptus Astartes unit from your army that was selected as a target of 1 or more of the attacking unit's attacks until the end of the phase, which just has actually been changed. It's now until the end of that activation, so it's only going to be against 1 unit, worsen the armor penetration characteristic of the attack by 1. So obviously Armor of Contempt, very powerful, but it has been nerfed a little bit, but very nice to see that in this detachment. And then we have Iron Arm, 1 command point, 1 fight phase. Target 1 Adeptus Astartes infantry unit from your army that is within 18 of 1 or more Adeptus Astartes psycho models from your army and has not been selected to fight this phase. Effect: until the end of the phase, add 1 to the strength characteristic of melee weapons equipped by models in your unit, or add 2 if the Biomancy discipline is active for your army. Alright, so this one's interesting because you don't actually have to target a psyker unit with this, but they do have to be within 18 inches of a psyker unit, which shouldn't be difficult because you're probably going to have quite a few psyker units. You add 1 to your strength characteristic of melee weapons, or add 2 if the Biomancy discipline is active. So again, nice dual purpose strat that leans in with an extra buff if you are using Biomancy that turn. And then we have Assail, 1 command point, when your shooting phase, 1 Adeptus Astartes psyker unit from your army that is eligible to shoot. Effect: select 1 enemy unit within 18 inches and visible to 1 psyker model from your unit, excluding units with the lone op ability. And roll 6d6, adding 1 to each of those if the telekinesis discipline is active for your army. For each 4-up, that enemy unit suffers 1 mortal wound. Alright, so we have an 18-inch grenade strat. You can't target lone op, and then if telekinesis is active, instead of going off on a 4-up, it goes off on a 3-up. So you're going to average 3 mortal wounds within 18 inches, or if you have telekinesis active, you're going to average 4 mortal wounds. And going to a 3-up can make this pretty swingy. There's definitely going to be some times where you're going to get like 5 or 6 mortals with this. So very, very powerful. Also, because it's not grenade, it's another strat, but a very similar strat, you'll be able to now grenade and then assail in the same turn. So you have the ability to dish out quite a few devastating wounds. And then on top of that, if you're running some Stern Guard also, they're going to be dishing out a ton of devastating wounds. So this detachment is pretty good. Alright, and then we have Fiery Shield, 1 command point. Fight phase, just after an enemy unit has selected its targets. Target 1 Adeptus Astartes infantry or Adeptus Astartes mounted unit from your army within 18 inches of 1 or more friendly Adeptus Astartes psyker models, and it was selected as a target of 1 or more attacking units' attacks. Effect: until the end of the phase, each time an attack targets your unit, subtract 1 from the hit roll, and if Pyromancy discipline is active for your army, weapons of the target unit have hazardous. Alright, so pretty good. It's -1 to be hit in the fight phase on a unit within 18 inches of a psyker, so situational but shouldn't be hard to get off. -1 to be hit, and then also if you have Pyromancy active, their attacks are going to be hazardous. So if you got like 10 guys coming in at you, probably like 1 or 2 of those guys is going to die from attacking you. So really good. And then we have Prescient Precision, 1 command point, your shooting phase. 1 Adeptus Astartes psyker unit from your army that was not selected to shoot this phase. Effect: until the end of the phase, each time a model in your unit makes an attack, the attack has the lethal hits ability, and the ignores cover ability as well if divination discipline is active for your army. So 1 command point for lethal hits in the shooting phase, and then also ignores cover if divination is active. So definitely some really nice strats here. They have dual purpose, so if you're planning on using a specific strat, you'll be able to couple that with which detachment ability you activate for your army. So very, very cool. Lots of synergy in this detachment. So definitely a really cool detachment. The Librarius Conclave is awesome. Obviously, you got to be leaning in on psychers if you're going to be going this route of the detachment, as almost everything is psycher only from the enhancements. And then also most of the stratagems require you to be either a psyker unit or within 18 inches of a psyker. But there's some really cool abilities here. Some of the most powerful abilities like reactive moves, especially a flat 6 reactive move, anti-monster, anti-vehicle 5-up, a bunch of devastating wound capabilities. Really, really nice detachment right here. I could definitely see this working on the competitive scene. Librarians are already really strong, granting a 4-up invulnerable save to the unit they're attached to. You also have defense against psychic attacks. They've got some psychic powers for shooting of their own, and then also in combat. Being able to buff some Terminator units by attaching a Librarian to them as well can be very strong. And then also if you're playing one of the chapters like Ultramarines, Blood Angels, or Dark Angels, you have really powerful psychers as well. So being able to buff them and then also being able to buff units within 18 inches of them could be very strong. You could definitely stack some awesome abilities, work out some amazing combos. And we've got another detachment that clearly could do really good with some of the new Stern Guard and the reroll all wounds ability that they've now been granted. So very, very cool. Definitely powerful. Let me know if you're excited to put the Librarius Conclave on the table. If you're looking to bust out like 3 to 6 more Librarians and suddenly just bring the force. Or you're trying to go all in on the Jedi detachment. Let me know down in the comments section what's got you excited. As always, special thanks to CMO Games for sponsoring the channel. Check out the link in the description to save 15% on most Games Workshop products. And make sure to tell them that Warhammer Man sent you. Warhammer Man Studios, I'm Warhammer Man. And the Librarius Conclave is awesome. And I'm out of here.